I decided to turn Snow White and Seven Dwarfs into a horror game in 1 week, and here's how I did it. The premise is simple. You play as Snow White stuck in the house of 7 dwarves. Over the course of 7 nights, you must escape the house of the dwarves, where each night will introduce a new dwarf with new challenges to overcome. If you survive 7 nights, you win. So, the first step, starting with the first-person blueprint, because who doesn't? I'll take care of all the graphics later. For the player, I just need simple interaction with doors, cupboards, chests, etc. Then pickups like keys and notes, and finally, movement basics. Luckily, the movement basics have been taken care of by the Unreal template. Nice. I also decided to add some extra life to the character through camera shakes when running, walking, jumping, and landing. It just feels so much more bouncy now. Next, world interaction. First, doors. This was a simple system, as it would just be a bunch of boxes slapped together. When the player entered a surrounding field and pressed E, then the inner box would rotate. Easy peasy. I also decided that starting the pickup system would be important, so I used a simple box as the stand-in for a key model for now. And for the mechanics, the key would need to be in range of the door's trigger. If the player was close enough and the door was currently in a locked state, then the door would be unlocked. If the player were to press E again, then they could open the door. A note system could also be quickly added since it would work just like the keys, but they aren't for anything other than reading. Next up would be the cupboards and closets and cabinets. See what I did there? Anyways, they would work similarly to the doors, but they wouldn't need any keys though, unless I decide to add it later. For variety and hiding, I made a closet with 2 doors. This can also be used as a hiding spot. Next up was a cabinet. This was more or less a door combined with a closet and then shrunk down. Pretty cute if I do say so myself. Lastly was a drawer, which was a bit different since it had to pull out cubbies rather than doors. In the last minute, I also added a bed hiding feature with a bed, so you have options to hide in the bed or the closet. I'm not going to make it impossible to win. I also needed to get the actual level in so that I could have an idea for the direction of the game. For the time, I just used a method for level design known as blocking in. Basically, I just put a bunch of shapes everywhere to give me a rough idea of how I want the level to be. In my case, it would be a house of various rooms, where the main door is protected by 7 locks. This was a day of work since it was mainly just messing around in-game till it felt good to play and maneuver around the level. When blocking was done, I moved on to actual detailing with different assets like shelves, bags, and seats. Just random things you'd find in a dwarf's home. These models were personally made by me because I wanted to get used to Unreal's modeling mode in the editor, which was super fun to get into. The next day, I worked towards setting up AI for the dwarves. First, a simple chase AI for Doc. Each dwarf would need their own AI behavior tree since different dwarves would be doing different things. Doc's would chase until something blocked his vision for over a second. Then he'd just go back to curiously roaming the level. Doc's AI was easy enough, and I moved on. Grumpy's was simple as well since it was just Doc's on steroids. If the player was seen, a count would go up, speeding up Grumpy each time until he was impossible to avoid. Yes, some challenge. Then I did Sneezy's AI, which was just Doc's without the chasing. Instead, Sneezy would leave puddles of his snares that would slow down the player when running into it. For now, it seemed like all the AIs would be easy to implement, so yeah. Thankfully, Bashful would be just like Doc's, but once he caught you, he'd bear hug you until another dwarf could show up and off you, so you'd have to mash E to escape, leaving him dazed for a few seconds. Dopey's was a bit trickier, as his AI would have to intentionally run into all the interactables, like doors and cabinets, to essentially randomize all the pickups. Every time he bumps into an interactable, the pickup locations would jump, making it hard to keep track of all items. It's even more challenging since you can only pick up 1 item at a time. For randomizing pickups, I essentially used a new actor blueprint for spawn points, where I'd keep track of all points in a list and pick the chronological point to teleport an object to whenever there was a bump. I think Sleepy's AI would probably be the most annoying AI since he works in sequence checking all beds in every room. Since so many AIs would be roaming the house, I decided that Sleepy's wouldn't see you, seeing as he'd probably be so tired that his eyes would be half shut. Instead, he'd just check under beds, going in order around the house. Finally, Happy gets to be the jump scare, where he randomly phases into any room. If you look at him at all, he pulls you towards him and you die. So it'd be best to keep your head down when you hear his laugh. If you don't look at him and leave, he'll basically disappear with a disappointed "Aw." For the fourth day, I decided to get into making the art for the game. First, the hands of the player. I wanted to get multiple different poses so that way the hands would appear more lively. They're more or less for visuals though. Next was the dwarves. It would be cool to have animations, but that's not a priority right now, so no worries. Now, since I didn't want to get sued, we've got Doc, which will be Nur, Sneezy, which will be Olgie, Dopey, which will be Doddle, Sleepy, which will be Durf, Bashful, which will be Lovey, Grumpy, which will be Grr, and Happy, which will be Yoke. Some names were made as jokes, others just felt right, and the rest really sounded like real Dwarven fantasy names. I'll let you pick who's who. I then moved to the menu buttons, to make it feel more appropriate for the style of the game rather than these blue blocks. Yeah! Much better. Now it was time for the main menu, an options menu, and pause menu, and just, ugh. Well, I couldn't not do it, so I guess I just had to buckle down and get to work. The main menu was what I set up first, because I knew how to do it from memory. Just adding some buttons and text here and there, and done. Then I attached the menu to a camera that I placed in the new level to be used as the menu screen. Ooh, a creepy hallway. Don't mind if I yes. So once that was set up, I moved on to the options. This was similar to the menu, but I had to use a tutorial since the setup would be a bit more confusing. Done, finished, don't have to touch that again. Phew. I then worked on implementing a fade to black across all the screens to hide the abrupt transitions. Once that was all done and dusted, I went to make the pause menu for in-game stuff, which I thought could be used as a neat way of taking your own screenshots for the game since I just copied and pasted the main menu and changed the text from the buttons. Easy. I also playtested a couple of times and found gameplay pretty boring, so I decided to make some new interactive elements like a hammer and boards to pry open, as well as a broom and dust feature to uncover hidden items in these little dust spaces. Obviously, more interactability equals more fun. Now I was ready to tackle sound effects. Luckily, I had some prior knowledge regarding how first person worked with sound effects like footsteps, thanks to Sergio's game. So I just implemented a similar system to allow for dynamic footsteps based on the ground. Though for me, the ground wouldn't change much other than from wood to cotton for the beds, of course. I was also getting nauseous from all the camera movement when jumping around with the player, so I adjusted it slightly to make it more stable when maneuvering the environment. Great! Now I don't want to throw up all over my PC. In the last minute, I thought I should offer a helping eye to all visually impaired players by giving the option for cleaner text when picking up notes, which was somewhat simple to include. In essence, I used the text input from the text renderer in the note actor to send any text I put on the note to a widget that could display the said text to the screen. If that wasn't too confusing, it basically made it so that no matter what I put on the note, it would dynamically change the screen to show just that. Awesome. Awesome. On the final day, I worked on fixing up bugs, testing if the game could actually be finished, had some playtesters, and cool beans. It could package. Now I could upload it to itch.io, and done. Overall, this was a really fun experiment to test the limits of what I could do in a short amount of time. So I'd definitely be trying it again when I get the chance. But it won't be anytime soon, since I did spend some nights working up to 3 AM to finish off something that just didn't want to work. Despite loving the final product, I won't lie, it really became a rush towards the end since I'm a perfectionist and absolutely despise publicly sharing anything of mine without making it actually look good. So, if you want to check out this hot heap of garbage, there's a link in the description, as well as the first comment. So be sure to that like button, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'm out.